Hello, beautiful people. One topic that I get asked about is the topic of patience. Sometimes it's because someone's asking me, how is it that I come to be so patient? And internally, I often think, well, I'm not. I don't feel patient because I often feel a sense of urgency, desire to act. I also look for resolution. I like things being harmonious. And if not harmonious, heading towards a solution or a space where there's possibility. But in everyday life, that's not always possible. So for many years, I've had so many answers to the question of patience. More recently, I've seen that patience is something which is available to me, and it's available to everybody to act to. It is, and I believe this is known or it's talked about, patience is a practice. And even with practice and lots of experience and lots of moments where that's the choice, in any given moment, any person may choose not to practice patience. So what are we doing when we're not being patient? My name is Misia. I work as a holistic practitioner, holistic psychotherapist. I work as an inclusions advisor. I actually can work as many things, but all of the roles, what they have in common is I support people's growth, a feeling of progression in life, an ability to face possibility, and to live as healthily and as whole as possible in every moment. And as we know, every day can look a lot different, whether it's due to our own factors and our own choices, or because life happens and other people's choices might impact us. So even though there is some control that we can have on and manipulation of the outside world, a lot of the time it comes back to us, to knowing what can we do? Do we have the inner resources to respond, to act or not act, and to live through a day, through a moment, and then through a day? When it comes to patience, all it seems is that the more skills you have in responding to pressure, the more likely you can practice patience. So in this video on patience versus pressure, I am looking to discuss, or perhaps not discuss, expand upon some of the skills that we call on when we're under pressure, as opposed to the skills that we can develop and call on when we are practicing patience. So where to start? That's always my dilemma. Let's go with patience, because that's ultimately the goal many people have. The wonderful thing about patience and the beauty of it is that in a truly patient state, there seems to be a degree of calm. There seems to be, it seems to offer the individual the choice of pace, that something can go faster or go slower, that decisions can be made, but they're optional, and that it keeps a person in an open state and able to look at input and observe. And that doesn't mean observe visually, although it can. It means you can observe and collect information as it comes to you. And that might be in the form of what you hear other people say, what is around you and surrounds, but also what is actually coming to you perhaps in an unexpected way. Because the other benefit of a patient state is that it allows for input beyond the focus points. So there's an expansive nature to patients. By contrast, when pressure arises, that's the space or the feeling that there is a buildup of tension, often an urgency or a speed is demanded. And if not demanded, internally it can feel as though something needs to happen faster. The likelihood of the world and all the inputs closing, diminishing, is greater, where you may need to focus on certain pieces of information in order to be able to act or react to the pressure. Also, in times of pressure, it may be that though responses might be ideal, and the ability to respond will come from the skills and that you can access. So if there is a low skill base, it may be that reaction and emotion and other coping mechanisms come into play. This is, by contrast, there's some jobs and some people who are and live in high pressure environments. And interestingly, they will often come across as calm. And if we think about our first responders, often, paramedics, fire people, there are, and it may even be someone in a business organizational environment needing to always to step in order to respond first to crisis events. When those individuals have numerous skills and experience to fall back on and have a scaffold and a structure, know what they're doing, they can be under pressure, but also they can remain responsive, collect information, be very focused about what they're collecting, need that input, and then act accordingly, making decisions often in rotation, revisiting each decision as information comes in. Collecting data might be in play, but also might not. They may be collecting information in the moment and storing and or holding data for reflecting on or revisiting later. So when there is a skill base, there's often a sense of calm or stability in a pressure situation in a first responder. But we can also be first responders in our own life. However, when we don't have the skill base and we don't know necessarily what we're doing, that leaves us often in a frantic environment, in a space where you feel like there's nothing to be holding on to. There's no grip, there's no scaffold, and that can make you feel like you're flailing. And perhaps not able to move forward or falling backwards, that feeling of hopelessness or despair or fear can take over. So in times of pressure, in environments where you have skill, possibly calling on the skills of patience are needed because there is a path forward. But in our life, when we are dealing with upsets, and it can be anything from a toddler having a highly pressured moment of their own, or in a job, having a space where a customer has become verbally abusive unexpectedly. There are so many moments where you may even have had the experience before, but just be confronted by a happening. The pressure was on you now to respond, but without a scaffold, patience doesn't seem like an option. But under pressure, all you have to work with is your emotional experience. And that can leave us agitated, stressed, disoriented, and feeling very unstable and unsettled. There's also the reality that wherever we are, especially if it is in a job, but as a parent too, the feeling of pressure can increase when an expectation we have for something to be occurring, let's say a teacher trying to teach, but also trying to manage a classroom, just feels as though they're out of their depth. They're losing the chance to teach, but they're also losing management of the class. And in that increased time of pressure, they may lose patience and resort to emotional expressions and reactions, which later they might regret. But in the moment, it's the only thing that they can go to. Practicing patience may mean looking at the individuals and or looking at the problems that are a problem. That, let's say there's no denying that they are a challenge of some sort. Stating what the challenge is, and or if there's a question and or a statement to be made, and then looking away and releasing. Ideally, if you can stretch the shoulders back, maybe even bringing your arms up, putting one behind your neck just to reconnect. Say, I am going to do the best I can, which means calling on all the resources I have today, not necessarily all the fear responses from my past. And then taking a double breath to reset the vagus nerve, looking around, reminding yourself that there is more than just this problem in the world. And in that moment, it reminds you that you do have other resources potentially to fall back on. Repositioning, which may be physical, or it may be mental, where you actually go, yes, I would have liked that done by now. I'm surprised this person hasn't, and I'm disappointed. And the space that I'm in is now in chaos. However, can I manage this? Can I deal with this? Or what can I do? And how can I work with what I've got? And in that moment, it may bring you back to working in a less pressured state, being responsive, and having a little more access to what you do know and what you are aware of. So, those 3 steps, stating what you need, looking away, resetting if you can, being expansive, as well as then repositioning either your body or your mind, are 3 steps you can do at any one moment in order to practice patience. And you may not feel like doing this all the time. It may not come naturally. But even if it is once or twice extra in a day, that is still more than before. And after some time, it may become more natural to call on that skill set. State the challenge, look away, reposition. Those three things together allow for pressure and release. Pressure and release. Without release, pressure has a way of peaking and then delivering outcomes and or heading towards damage or destruction. There's no problem with pressure arising. That means there is information coming in that needs to be looked at. Knowing how to release and then step into a calm is one of the pathways to practicing patience. I wish you all the best in practicing, in progress, and in your growth.